Today we're talking about an expression from Ireland's oldest licensed distillery. This is Kilbeggan Single Grain Whiskey. Let's get into it. Hello everybody and welcome to the Whiskey Dictionary. So it is true, Kilbeggan is in fact the oldest distillery that's licensed in Ireland. And that doesn't mean that they make their own stuff. In fact, they source from Cooley, but a lot of Irish whiskey sources from one of the major distilleries. So that's not that big of a deal for an Irish whiskey. It doesn't really detract for me. Some people would feel that way about an American whiskey or a bourbon that might take from MGP or something like that. But up in Ireland, it's way more commonplace, totally fine. So with Kilbeggan, they do have this 180-year-old copper pot still, which is the oldest pot still in the world. And I think that's a pretty cool thing. So you could definitely check out some images there, or if you're in the area, check out the copper pot still. It's kind of a bit of history. Now last year around this time, I covered the small batch rye that Kilbeggan does. Now that is a really good whiskey. And if you're interested in more history of the brand or that particular whiskey, check the link up there and enjoy. But let's talk about this particular whiskey. Now this is the Kilbeggan Single Grain. Now you might think to yourself, single grain, that's probably made of a single grain. But you'd be very wrong. And because, you know, labeling on whiskey is always very, very clear. When you're dealing with Irish whiskey and you're talking about single grain, that just means it has to be made in the same location. Now Irish whiskey needs malted barley. That is just a thing that it needs. So in this case, it's malted barley plus a single other grain. And in this case, it's corn. This is 94% corn and 6% malted barley. So those of you out there that love bourbon, you probably love your corn, but this is gonna be very different than any of the bourbons that you typically taste. It's not really gonna hit on any of those like caramel or vanilla, given those are coming from the barrel for the most part, but it's not gonna have the same flavor as a bourbon. So this does spend some time in ex-bourbon barrels, as most whiskeys do, but it's also finished in wine barrels as well. It's bottled at 43% and no age statement. So let's go into the nosing and the tasting. Now when you nose this at 43%, the good news is this is a light and crisp kind of thing. You're not gonna burn, and there's not gonna be any burn from alcohol. So go ahead and take a nice deep smell. Now for me, one of the first things that I noticed here, it was actually the first thing I wrote down, was sunscreen. And I later came to realize, after evaluating it a little bit more, is that I thought it smelled like coconut, because so many sunscreens are scented like coconut for reasons. But makes you think of the beach, I suppose. But anyway, so I'm gonna stick with the sunscreen here, but also just put the coconut in there. There's some vanilla coming through, and that's obviously from the bourbon barrels. And in general, it's very, very, very light, but none of those things are really significantly sticking out than anything else. I mean, obviously, like I mentioned, the coconut kind of sunscreen is the first thing I picked up, but nothing is an overreaching, like a way too heavy smell. It's balanced, but balanced is also the wrong word, because balanced would be like a harmony. This is more just kind of like, hey, I'm here. So anyway, let's go ahead and give this a taste. Cheers. Now the thing with the taste of this is there's not a lot. There's not a ton going on. The first thing I'm getting is hazelnut. And hazelnut is one of the few that I can definitely pick out here. There's a little bit of oakiness coming obviously from those bourbon barrels. But other than a little bit of the sharpness from the 43%, that's really all that's going on here. And I did actually try for a little while to pick out some more flavors, but everything I got, it was either so subtle that I doubted myself, or just kind of like variances on hazelnuts and oak. Not a lot going on the taste here. So, all right, in my opinion, my overall thoughts on this whiskey, you could probably tell, I don't think this one's really worth it, personally. I did look around, because usually if I think I don't like a whiskey, I'll go look at what other people said to make sure I didn't miss anything, or make sure that they're not like, hey, you really gotta let this sit out for like 3 months before you go after it. People seem to give this, like on a scale of 5, it was around a 3.5. So I mean, it's better than average, I guess, but it's not super impressive either. So kind of made me think I was on the right track. But this is a $30 whiskey. Now, what I think this whiskey would be good for, if anything, is cocktails, specifically Irish coffees. There is that lightness to this is more gonna get lost in the coffee, to the point where you've now just got a coffee that can speak for itself if you use some good coffee beans or have a good way of making that coffee. And now you've got some alcohol in it, you know? So drown this guy in some coffee. And I'm sorry, Kilbeggan, the rest of your stuff is awesome. It really is. This one, for me, misses the mark. But that's why I'm here, let you guys know. So thank you very much for joining me here on the Whiskey Dictionary. Go check out the whiskey coins. Check out my website, thewhiskydictionary.com, and see some of the stuff. I've got some new merch up there as well. But other than that, I hope you guys continue to join me here on Irish Whiskey Month. I'll be reviewing several other things later this week. I'll be doing the Connemara, which that is much better than this. So have a great rest of your night, and cheers.